Yeah, so on March 3rd, the day the series was supposedly over, Scott revealed that he was not done with FNaF because why would we ever think it would be over? This content pack teaser contains a hat, although we wouldn't know until later that this was actually FNaF related. Many people figured it was just Scott's next project. And April 22nd, the hat is gone. Where did it go? Who took it? What happened to it? Then a work leak later. Oh my fucking god, what the hell is that? But this teaser is actually pretty cool. It first and foremost shows off this guy. He's a real cutie. As well as saying the final chapter and the release date being Halloween. I'm sure those are going to hold true. And also, if you brighten the image, it says Nightmare along the bottom. Before we continue, this video is actually sponsored by me. I have a Patreon now. It's linked in the description, and don't feel pressured to donate if you don't want to or can't. Anyway, we then see teasers of Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy on May 5th, May 16th, and May 29th, respectively. All plastered with Nightmare, except Foxy, whose teaser seems to say murder, although I'm not 100% on that. On June 11th, a new teaser is released featuring a purple bow tie and hat. And brightened, it shows in the bottom, property of Most people think this is supposed to be Fredbear's Family Diner. And on the 25th, we see the hottie that these items belong to. And brighten the image shows Or-Wa, which is a very important lore reveal because it means orgasm water. And then almost 3 months later, on July 9th, we finally receive a new teaser featuring Plush Trap and above text reading terrible things come in small packages. And then on July 13th, we receive a trailer, and sticking to tradition, I'll review it later. Because Scott hates us, on the 23rd of July, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is released. It's also worth mentioning that around now merch started to be quite prevalent. I don't necessarily know when Funko, who is one of the largest creators of FNaF merch, licensed the franchise, because when I googled when did Funko license FNaF, all of the results were relating to some controversy about Funko leaking security breach content and possibly losing their license from a couple years ago. But to talk about the trailer again, it's not terrible. It shows off a good amount of the gameplay, although it entirely fails to sell the best aspect of the gameplay, being the breathing mechanic. This teaser is also not nearly as iconic of that of the first three. It's also very basic for a FNaF trailer. If you got some assets and vague instructions to how the game works, you could probably make the same thing as this trailer. It basically just cuts around showing you different game mechanics before jump scaring you. But anyway, holy shit, this game had so much for people to theorize about. Was this the Bite of 87 or the Bite of 83? Are Fredbear and Golden Freddy the same? And most importantly, but actually it's not really that important looking back, what are the contents of the box? Ultimately, all of these questions would be half answered, but on July 26th, Scott Games was updated to simply say, the end. I can't even make a joke like, oh well, I'm sure that'll hold true, because if you brighten the image, you see a little question mark. But then, on August 2nd, this teaser dropped. It was just a little thank you, showing every animatronic of the series, for the most part. People got their hopes up and assumed the series was actually over. And not for bad reason, it stayed like this for over a month. But then on 9/11, which seems to be a date Scott never really forgets to post something on, this teaser was released. If you didn't see it, this endoskeleton from FNaF 1 was changed to this weird. This then happened every day for the next 15 days, where a couple animatronics would change and the sun would keep rising. And eventually, it was updated to show FNaF World as a name and a release date of 2016. And on October 30th, the trailer would be released. But at some point, MatPat announced he would be doing a live stream to talk about all things FNaF lore. And there are a lot of things FNaF lore. And after some technical difficulties, Scott himself started updating Scott Games with hints to the lore. In the FNaF 4 minigame, why would Tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child, and 4 games, 1 story. Now, 4 games, 1 story is a tiny bit helpful in that it builds a deeper relation between FNaF 4 and the rest of the games, because let's be honest, FNaF 4 felt kind of disconnected from the first 3. What is seen in shadows is often misunderstood in the mind of a child is interesting, and it lets us know that there is at least some aspect of misinterpretation or dreaming or what have you by the crying child. And finally, why would Tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? This one is an absolute bombshell for such a small detail, it points out. I'm basically stealing this from MatPat, but it drew a parallel between FNaF 2 and 4, which seem to have relatively few similarities. And the reason Toy Chica would be missing her beak is because Toy Chica is just that, a toy. And so is every other animatronic from FNaF 1 through 3. Yeah, it sounds like quite a stretch, but it's not like it could be much else. With that bombshell of a borderline fact, the fanbase was enraged, because honestly, Dream Theory is kinda lame, and they were right to be angry, but hey, new game's coming out, it's probably going to be a lore-irrelevant spin-off, and I can finally forget about this god-awful series forever. And it actually was pretty lore irrelevant on release, and also horrifically bad. Like, even though it wasn't, because it will never be, people were actually hoping the series was finished after this. Pretty much every Let's Player that played FNaF 1 kept playing the games until 4, but almost no Let's Players played, let alone beat FNaF World. There was a little bit of lore with a new mysterious character, but that pretty much seemed unrelated to the first 4 games, and that it would be its own storyline altogether. But aside from FNaF World, what I didn't talk about was the FNaF 4 Halloween update teasers, which, unlike any other game, actually released when it was supposed to. The teasers were all just sneak peeks of the animatronics, similar to FNaF 4, but they're all Halloween-y now. The DLC was released on Halloween. What do you want from me? People liked it, I guess. Anyway, back to FNaF World trailer I forgot about. Also, I've muted some of the audio because in the last video I had copyright troubles I had to fix on upload day because of the copyright music in the FNaF 2 and 3 trailers. It's actually pretty good. It fully convinces you it's a normal horror game before these fucks slide up into the frame, and by this point it's quite clear that this is not a normal FNaF game. It then shows us some gameplay, and then that it's going to be starring fucking everyone, I guess. Although, for a fun detail, it does give us the name of Funtime Foxy. On December 11th, this teaser would be released. Yep, as if there wasn't enough content in the series, they're writing a fucking book. But it was nice because we may get to learn more about the bits of lore from FNaF World, assuming they're based in the same universe, which isn't a huge assumption. 2 days later, they announced that the book would release on December 22nd, And then the next day, the title was announced. Thank God they changed it to The Silver Eyes, because the untold story is so lame and basic, like, good God. And then on December 22nd, the book was officially released, and it was mid. It's not like it was some disgrace to the reader, but yeah, this book wasn't super well written. People didn't really care, though, because the literacy rate of the FNaF fandom is like 3%. Chapter 1 is pretty simple. It introduces the main characters, Marla, Jessica, Lamar, Carlton, John, and Michael, as well as establishing that the books take place roughly 10 years after the death of the crying child, or a couple years after FNaF 1. Additionally, it's our only idea of a general area of the world of FNaF. The books, at least, take place in Hurricane, Utah. Apparently, Michael was killed 10 years ago, which heavily implies that the crying child and Michael are the same person, which is a theory I hate, because it makes William's character far less interesting. But anyway, some character progression happens, and they go back to Freddy's. Now, although I genuinely want to review this whole book, because it's not as known as the main FNaF franchise in terms of lore, I genuinely think you should read it yourself. It's $7 on Amazon, and also I don't really have the time to listen to and write about the entire book because I'm posting this video in like 3 days as of writing. Regardless, on February 2nd, these lines would appear. Wonder what that means? Then some more. That means something, probably. And on 4/23, this teaser is released announcing Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, because of course there's another game. This teaser also shows off one of the most important characters in this game, which is actually barely in the game. Oh, and FNaF World is getting updated, but also nobody cares. And then this teaser from May 16th, which shows us absolutely nothing new except a better look at Baby. A trailer on the 21st, when do you think I'm going to talk about it? And on June 17th, we see this fine young fellow who happens to also be an amalgamation of 4 different child-murdering possessed robots. On July 6th, we got these guys who appear to be directly related to Lucifer saying don't hold it against us, and I absolutely will hold it against them. On the 21st, we see this teaser, which shows us the light and shock console thing, and brightened it reveals more Satan spawn. And then on August 16th, unfortunately, the game was cancelled due to leaks after months of development. Of course it wasn't. Scott just fucking hates everyone who likes this game. People discovered it's not cancelled through this newspaper article, which I guess people could somehow read. Although it would be more confirmed on the 27th when a new teaser dropped on Scott Games of Ennard's Mask with the release date of October 7th under it. Only legible brightened, of course. Then this teaser, which kind of implies a camera layout, which didn't end up being in the game. Whether it was planned or not, I don't know, but what is interesting is brightened, it shows 2 rooms connected to the Funtime Auditorium, these being the scooping room and the private room, as would be revealed in the game. And then on that same day, this teaser, which gives us absolutely no new info, then this teaser where the Ennard mask is gone again, and on October 7th, once again the actual date that was announced, FNaF's sister location was released. And good God, this game was incredibly different from the last 4. And more relevant to the series, it was very theorizable. There were so many more questions. Were you playing as Michael or William in Sister Location? Is Springtrap Michael or William? Although Scott pretty much curb-stomped Mike Trap. There was still a question of if the player, the girl that speaks between the nights, and the creator of the robots were all the same, or in the same family. But, oh, and that trailer I never talked about. This trailer is undoubtedly much better now than it was on release, mainly because it doesn't show a single gameplay mechanic, at least outside of being able to move around the map, which isn't really a game mechanic. But now it's more understandable because the game doesn't really follow a standard gameplay loop like the previous games. I do like the start, kind of similar to FNaF 2 where it shows the previous games, but now there's 4 games instead of 1. The text in between is also kind of accurate. FNaF 1 is fear, which yeah, I guess it's a horror game. FNaF 2 is panic, which is totally true. FNaF 3 is dread, because I dread playing it. And FNaF 4 isn't really terror-based, it's kind of just normal horror. The trailer then cuts to black and shots of the elevator, the circus gallery, control room, and the vents, before showing off Funtime Foxy, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Baby, while saying, "Deep underground where memories sleep, anger is restless, and secrets don't keep," before showing all of the newly introduced animatronics dancing on stage, except Baby, who just, stares at you ominously. Moving on, June 11th, 2017, this teaser is released on Scott Games. So, this is a bit of a behind-the-scenes peek, but I'm using a Reddit post and a specific website to give the teaser dates and the images themselves. And there's a bit of an inconsistency between these sources. These are the ones listed on the Reddit post, and these are the ones from the website. Also, for some reason, all of the Twisted Ones teasers are listed as being from 2016, even though they're from 2017. Regardless, these designs are actually really cool. All of them are relatively similar to the Nightmares, but the main difference is that there's less withering. Whether that's a conscious choice, or if it's just the style, I don't know, but regardless, these designs are crazy. I feel like it's worth mentioning that this teaser of Twisted Foxy is the 100th Five Nights at Freddy's teaser. On June 27th, the Twisted Ones would be released, and there was a clear jump in writing quality. However, because the general hype over FNaF book was not nearly as high, even fewer people actually read it. But I still advise you give it a read yourself. I do wish I could cover the books in more detail, but I only have so long to work on these videos, and I don't want them to be an hour long. Not to mention it takes me 9 years to read a book. Although we aren't quite done yet. It's just not listed on the Reddit post I'm using, but there are 3 versions of this Freddy plush. One is just a plush, one with a string holding it up, and the other with 4 strings, all only visible brightened, of course. Then on August 18th of 2017, a new teaser would be released, showing off this arcade-style version of Freddy, reminiscent of the Take Cake minigame from FNaF 2. He is also repping his pansexual pride. And then on October 28th, over 2 months later, he would have some children to eat alive, give cake to. Then on November 11th, he got pizza. Then come December, Pizzeria Simulator is officially announced, and days later, the countdown of 2 days begins. And then on December 5th, the game is officially released, and oh my god, there is so much lore. The community had a lot to theorize about. Who is Orange Guy? Who is the Fruity Maze Girl? Does the dog have anything to do with anyone? Who is the couch person? Why is Helpy so prone to injury? Questions like these were definitely important, but there's obviously the elephant in the room.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
This speech, on top of just being incredible, left people with questions about the future of the series. Obviously, the novel canon would continue, because it's not done yet, and Lord knows there would still be merch. But for the first real time in the series, there were questions about if it would continue in the games. And those questions would not remain unanswered for long. Once again, there just aren't dates for these, but on some date in 2018, this teaser was released. And then on some later date in 2018, it gets corrupted. However, it does reveal Custom Night, which appeared to just be DLC for Pizzeria Simulator, perhaps bringing some of the mediocre melodies and such in just for fun. And then the teaser is fully corrupt, and then, oh no, he's doing all of the characters. He would then add a whole bunch more characters. Teaser is corrupt, a few more are added, then just Lefty is added, then the Phone Guy, then Candy Cadet, and the FNaF World Endoskeleton are removed. The Freddles would then be replaced by Nightmare, then Trash and the Gang would get compacted and Nightmarian and Molten Freddy are added. The next teaser changed a lot, and the next teaser announced Ultimate Custom Night would be coming later that year. Then The Office would be released, and over the next while, each new character being programmed was a new teaser. Then Dee Dee would be introduced, and the secret characters she can add would be next. Over several teasers, because it's Scott Cawthon. Then finally on June 25th, Ultimate Custom Night will be released, and god damn it, it's funny. No, but actually it's a pretty good game, and there's almost no lore except the entire game is William Afton's hell that Golden Freddy is responsible for. But yeah, basically no lore. Anyway, with that I'm going to head off for this video. I'll see you all in like a week and a half. Just kidding, I have more bullshit. As I talked about in my FNaF nostalgia video, the FNaF community always was making new theories or Let's Plays, mainly because the community always had new content to latch onto. However, this was around the time FNaF games started to get much fewer and further in between, prompting the community to make a shift in the content they created because there just wasn't new content to latch onto. I'll talk more about the change in the next part of this series, but this really was the beginning of the end for the classic 2015 type FNaF video. Anyway, actually, goodbye now. Okay, so, I don't normally talk in the end cards, but I'm now going to be using this segment to shout out all of my patrons, because I have Patreon now. If you join the top tier, I will shout you out in here. Bye.